Okay, and we are live. Welcome, everyone. If you are just tuning in, this is the Ghana Innovation Journal's Innovator Spotlight, where we cover and do a deep dive on our weekly newsletter on Innovation Journal. Today, I'm excited to have with me Jeremy Kwenu, who is the current General Manager, Africa Operations and Partnerships at Jumo. And he recently put on his LinkedIn that he's starting this new role. So congratulations, first of all, to Jeremy.
Thank you. Thank you.
And before I even go on with more introductions from our end, why don't you just give us a quick idea of who you are and what your journey has been like coming to this current role?
Sure. Thank you, Amishadai. I think it's always a pleasure to get an audience or be in the presence of people within the community on, the same journey. So my journey has been quite an interesting one. So I started out my career in banking, as you already know. Initially started off working for Barclays for a short stint and then transitioned over to Fidelity. And I was there for the better part of a decade, I think about 8 years to be precise, give or take. Initially, I started off my journey as a management trainee, so giving me the opportunity to rotate through several different units of the bank. Sorry, Amish, are you still there?
Yes, go ahead. I'm listening.
Okay, sure. So I rotated through several different units of the bank. That gave me some perspective as to what the gaps that exist within the banking space are. And I think that exposure gave me a lot of insight into what the future of financial services would be once some of these aspects were streamlined. Okay. So when the opportunity came where the bank started embarking on these digital transformation drives, so a lot of banks started setting up digital offices, trying to partner with fintechs because they noticed that there were a number of tech-enabled solutions that they did not have the internal capacity to build. The best way to get these services out in front of customers was to partner. I recognized that the future of financial services was going to be financial technology. And so when the opportunity came for me to jump ship into the fintech industry, I realized that, yes, my main interest was in that intersection between finance and technology. Prior to this, I had worked in the bank's innovation unit. I had worked as a manager for retail products, both assets and liabilities. And so I had a fair idea of what the gaps within the retail market particularly was. Okay. So we tried to do a project with Jumo, and I think that is how the relationship got built. And when this role opened up, I was essentially more or less highlighted as one of the people who would do well in the role. So that's how the transition came in. And then came the roller coaster that is the fintech industry. And I think I've been in Jumo since March 2020. I joined smack bang during the COVID lockdowns and had to endure everything that came with that, the lockdowns, the hardships, the heartaches, all of that. But I think that the journey there has been an exciting one. I first joined as the manager for capital, so managing a relationship with our banking partners, and then climbed through the ranks, became head of banking partnerships, and now general manager for our Africa operations and partnerships. Yeah, I think I probably jumped the gun and didn't explain what Jumo actually was or what Jumo does, but maybe that question will come up and I can provide a lot more context. But that's been my journey. That's a little bit of who I am and what I do and how I got to this point.
All right, thank you, Jeremy. It's been exciting hearing about your journey, and I think it's also kudos to you for being able to see the trend before it's happened and to be able to jump onto it, right? So, based on what you were saying, you saw an opportunity, you made the transition quickly, and here you are now. So, yes, go ahead and tell us a bit about Jumo. What do you do, and why? What is the gap that you're looking to fill here in Ghana?
Sure, great. So Jumo is a multi-sided fintech platform. We pride ourselves in calling ourselves a Pan-African fintech platform because our market primarily is in Africa. We're live in 6 territories across the continent, but our biggest market is Ghana. And the unique dynamic of the Ghanaian market is what has made us thrive here. So what Jumo does is we partner with the large banks and the large telcos within the territories to solve the problem of unequal access to credit and borrowing choices for the unbanked market. So there's a whole group of people who are, let's call it, invisible to the formal financial sector, either because they don't have enough documentation, they don't have financial transaction history, they don't have collateral, etc., etc. So they do not have the hope of trying to access formal financial services because they
Mm.
lack all of these things. Now, Jumo comes in with our technology, i.e., our advanced AI algorithms, our predictive capabilities, our ability to assess and analyze data. And we partner with a telco who has this mobile money ecosystem of customers who have open mobile wallets, which are akin to accounts. And we say we can look at these customers' digital footprints and gauge and tell you a customer's propensity to take and repay a loan without them having to fill numerous forms, without them having to go to a branch location or an agent point. We can
Mm.
have you do all of these things simply via their mobile phones and via the USSD channel. And so if you are familiar with any of the loan products that are on MTN's mobile money menu, Jumo is the
Right.
tech platform that is facilitating this. So that is who we are. That is what we do. We've been here since 2017. We are partnered with multiple banks, and we are one of MTN's key partners when it comes to the delivery of mobile loan solutions on their platform. So till date, I think we've served 6.2 million customers in Ghana. We have
Okay.
granted, I think in the last year, we granted over a billion Ghana cedi in loans in the last month of December,
Million or
and on
a billion?
a billion.
Mm.
Yeah. And on a monthly basis, we are disbursing around 882 million in loans to all our customers in Ghana. So what we've done, and probably we need to stop that, is we pretty much stayed behind the scenes and let
Yes.
the telcos and the bank lead the charge, so that um, that's usually what our MO has been. We want to be the facilitator. We don't want to create the impression that we are in competition or trying to take credit. We're trying to enable the banks and the telcos. And the reason why it's the bank and the telcos is because the funding for the loan comes from the banks. So the money that
Okay.
is granted to customers as credit is coming from the banks, but the data and the customer and the platform that it's hosted on is coming from the telco. So we are the technological bridge that brings these customers, these two partners, these huge players together, and we provide them with the account management, the disbursements, the collections, the credit scoring, the portfolio managing, the engineering, everything that is in between is what Jumo brings to the table. So I hope that gives you a high level overview of what we do and who we are.
Yes, it does. Thank you, Jeremy. And it's amazing. So it's a billion CDs in the last month, you said?
In the last month of 2023, we disbursed a billion CDs. Yes.
That's fascinating. And just today, I saw the report from BOG that said that fintechs processed, actually, instant payment systems in Africa processed a record of 1.2 trillion. And just Haptel alone processed 160 billion last year. So it's crazy how much money is going through the system. And what you are saying
Definitely.
is, yes, you've been playing a back end role for the most part. So
Yeah.
what does a front facing role for Jumo look like? Or are you going to stay at the back end?
So I think even our partners have asked that we step more into the front end because they feel that we're doing a lot more than the ecosystem is aware of, right? In terms of,
Mm.
if you were looking for the best example of how AI is applied in financial services, then we
Yes.
are actually a live use case that you can easily point at to say, we're not leveraging the traditional scoring system where you have to go to a branch. Everything we're
Mhm.
doing is solely based on algorithms, predictive analytics capabilities, analyzing large data sources that the telco is providing us, and then
Right.
fitting it within each bank's business rules, handling the asset allocation, the disbursements, the collection. And none of these are done physically. All of these are done by automated platforms with these large AI automations. So
Mm.
we are actually at the front because the USSD channel and the disbursement and collections process out of the wallet is all controlled by Jumo. But if you were
Mm.
a customer, you would assume that it was controlled by MTN because that is
Right.
how we have structured it. You would also assume that the funding was coming was sourced by MTN. However, it
Uh,
is Jumo who goes to the banks and sources this capital that is run through the platform. So we are managing the banks, and we are the ones who are doing the forecasting, letting them know how much can go into the ecosystem, and also collecting in such a manner that they will find it sustainable enough to keep adding money on. So a front-facing customer, in some of our markets, we actually do have our own license to lend. So there is,
Right.
let's call it a Jumo USSD channel or a Jumo app. But when you
Okay.
have a telco like MTN who owns, 70 to 80% market share, then it's better to ride off their rails as opposed to taking one of your own. So I think coming to the fore is just shedding more light on some of the work that we have been doing behind the scenes all
Okay.
this while,
Okay.
and then allowing people to, share in some of the numbers and the data that we've been, let's call it, keeping to ourselves as we contribute silently to the growth of the fintech ecosystem.
Man, I can imagine the amount of data you guys are sitting on. It will be so fun to play with. And from what you're saying, you are leveraging on telcos because they have the existing user base and the existing user base, but you are essentially leveraging on their reach for you to be able to get access to your customers. And the product that you offer are done via the telcos. Is it just MTN that you rely on as a partner, or are you available on the other telcos as well?
So across our markets, we are partnered with multiple telcos. So we are partnered with MTN in multiple markets. We are also partnered with Airtel, Tigo. We are in talks with Vodacom in other markets as well. And in Ghana, we've been in talks with the others as well. But it only makes sense that since you have a large telco like MTN, who is,
Right.
as aggressive as they are, they became the first gateway in.
Okay, okay. And are there any other fintech solutions that you depend on? So I know you provide API for banks to leverage for products that they offer, but you as Jumo in Ghana, are there any fintechs or other tech companies that you rely on?
So the way Jumo is set up is sort of we've created our own closed sort of tech ecosystem and built the kind of capabilities that typically other fintechs would partner to acquire. So we have a full stack platform that does both front end and back end. So
Okay.
we don't really rely on other fintechs for a lot of the things that we do, because we can do our own credit scoring, we do our own integration. We have
Okay.
a world-class engineering team that is able to do a lot of our UX UI design. We don't do any kind of remittances, so there's no need for us to find any kind of payment gateways and co. Unless from a payment processing standpoint, where let's say we are trying to receive payments from our other markets, then we can leverage the pay stacks and co. But it's really quite limited in that sense. We've sort of built a kind of tech ecosystem internally where we can do a lot of the things that we need to do because we have that internal engineering capacity. Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's switch the conversation a bit from tech and tech lingo to more personal stuff, right? Tell us
All right.
tell us a bit about what you wish you knew before you started your journey in fintech.
That's a really, really good question. I think the answer is twofold. I
Okay.
think I wish I knew about the upside of working in the fintech industry. And what I mean by that is how fulfilling it can be. And this is just because I transitioned from, a traditional institution or a traditional industry like banking into
Mm,
a more, startup scale up type culture of fintech. But
mm,
the upside is just how fulfilling it can be to see directly how your work impacts the lives of thousands, if not millions of people directly. When people ask
okay.
you, how exactly do you improve lives? You have a direct answer that you can give because you know what you do every day is actually making an impact. So there's no comparison for that, and the upside
Mm,
is in that sense is immense. The flip side of that is I wish I had been prepared for the absolute roller coaster that is the fintech industry, right? That I think it's perpetually, you're perpetually in a state of what I call controlled chaos. And I suppose most industries or most companies are in that state, but I think it's more prevalent in the tech startup
mm,
world or the fintech ecosystem as well, simply because you are at the risk of all of these external hurdles and things that could come in, not
Mm,
just affecting your business in a way where you slightly deviate from your target as it
mm,
is with the traditional institution, but the hurdles in this industry could entirely derail your business. So a policy change by government could shut down your entire operation. The regulator not being happy with you, a partner
right.
deciding not to renew a contract, customers just taking a disliking to your product just because of instances of fraud. These things don't just derail you from, let's say, achieving your quarterly target. They could impact your entire business. So a lot of your time is spent playing defense against these
Mm,
really, let's call it, life-threatening events that could occur. But
mm.
there's high risk and high reward. And if you are able to be resilient and overcome these hurdles, the upside is quite immense. So those are the two things that I would say: the fulfillment, the how
Mm.
fulfilling it is from when you get things right and you're helping the lives of millions of people, and just
Mm.
also knowing that the risks here are quite real and you're perpetually in a state of controlled chaos. It
Okay, I
definitely
love it.
isn't for everyone. Yeah.
I love it. It reminds me of a tweet someone shared with me today. It said, right now, somewhere, an entrepreneur is dreaming of a product that will make your life better. Also, right now, somewhere, a politician is thinking of a regulation that will prevent that from happening. So, spot on. Okay,
Definitely, it goes
thanks
hand
for
in
sharing
hand.
that. Yes, and I think it will be a good encouragement for anyone who's looking to switch from traditional sectors into the tech space. And let's go back to Jumo. I also want to understand a bit what demographics do you see your users covering in Ghana? So outside the B2B, right?
Yeah.
On the you mentioned, you see directly how it influences individuals' lives. So in those individuals who are taking loans, etc., can you give us an idea of that demography?
Sure. So one of the things that we pride ourselves in doing is we conduct something we call an EPS survey, which is like a customer survey for the actual customer on the ground. So technically, we're not just a B2B, we're a B2B2C because we pay close attention to who these partners are also serving so that we can better position the product so it's fulfilling for them. And from the
Mm,
surveys that we've conducted, a large chunk of the people who use the products that we offer are
mm,
people who we would say are on the bottom or the base of the pyramid. So typically people who are living on less than $60 a week,
mm,
or $2 a day, $5 a day,
mm.
between to $60, a week. They are
Okay.
typically the base of the pyramid. We have some in the rural areas,
Mm,
peri-urban areas as well. But the surprising thing is you have the everyday people, middle income earners, also patronizing the product for
mm,
sort of emergency reasons, right? So
mm.
your car broke down on a stretch, and you need to, let's say, buy a battery to replace your battery. You need to get a battery replacement. You could easily go on the MTN menu and then take a loan and then purchase that. So people build up their limits so that they have enough money on hand as sort of their backup plan for emergencies. Then you also
Mm,
have the, let's call it, mom and pop shops or the tabletop sellers. A lady
mm.
who sells, ice water or pure water in traffic. Typically, she would have to go and borrow, let's say, 50 CDs from a neighbor or a friend, go
Right.
buy a head pan of water and sell in traffic, and hope she can make back the money and profits, and then pay
Mm,
back the person that she took it from. If she's unable to make back the profit, then she ends up having to swerve and hide from the person until she can make that money back. Now with our product, you eliminate that whole aspect. She can just go online, take the same amount of money, go do her business. If she can't pay that day, we give you a 30-day tenor, and so within that period, you can turn it around as many times as you like, and it becomes a form of working capital for them, right?
right.
During the periods where interest rates skyrocketed and people could not go to the banks and get, rates
Mm,
lower than 25%, we began to
mm,
see that a lot of people were falling back on our product because the price has pretty
mm,
much remained stagnant since 2016. It's a flat 7%. Even when it went high, it went to 9%. And despite
mm,
the fact that it's an increase, it's still much cheaper than any other credit product you would get on the market.
mm,
So we began to
mm,
see that people were using it to buy groceries. Those who had students going to school were using that to stock up on the kids' groceries and supplies. And
mm.
usually you tend to see that the base of the pyramid uses it the most. But as you get higher up, you begin to see specific use cases that each individual has for the product. Because an upper limit of 3,000 means that you can get up to 3,000, and that can do a
Mm.
lot for a lot of people. Yeah.
Man, when you talked about how you see the direct impact it has on people, I didn't fully understand it. But this example with the ice water seller, man, that was so on point. And thank you for
Yeah.
sharing that. I also noticed you, in a way, you are helping people to build their credit score. Is this something they're able to leverage for other kinds of businesses?
So I think eventually that is where we are going to get to, but we have to start from the ground base, right? Because
Okay.
if I asked you right now, Amishadai, what is your credit score? I'm not sure like in Ghana you actually know what it is. So
Mm.
we were kind of far removed from that point where helping people build a credit score meant anything to them. What we had to
Okay.
first start by doing was trying to see how best we could shape behavior with the product. So people would know that if I take the loan and I behave well under the loan. If I take the
Mm.
loan and I pay on time, I get
Yeah.
access to not just a higher amount, but potentially a reduced price. So you
Okay.
let the customer go through the journey and let them understand that even though it's a 30-day loan, if you pay back earlier, there's advantages to that. And so
Okay.
inadvertently, we're letting them understand how a credit score actually works. Then you can get
Mm.
to the point where the customer is already familiar with with the product and the journey. Then you can introduce the credit score. What we've done in that regard is each of the banks is integrated with a credit bureau. So
Okay.
they are mandated to send reports to the credit bureau. The data is sent over to the credit bureau. You're
Okay.
always going to have those bad actors who take the loan and just don't repay. But now we've gotten to the point where the credit bureau has information on all those who don't repay. So you, Amish Shaddai, could have taken a 40 CD loan and forgotten about it. Not that you didn't intend to pay, but you forgot about it or you just lost the SIM card. Because of the introduction of the credit bureau integration, if you eventually decided you wanted to go take a mortgage or a car loan of, let's say, 400 or 500,000, because you owe that 40,000, you are not allowed to take access another loan. So that
Mm.
brings a customer's mind to the fact that, okay, you do have a credit history and there is a record of your behavior, which is your score, and you have to
Mm.
make sure that you maintain a clean sheet. Eventually, we'll get to the point. Jumo does have credit scores on each customers. The banks have the credit scores on each customers, but I don't think
Okay.
we've gotten to the point where we communicate it to the customers in a way that would be meaningful to them. We try and let them understand the dynamics of what it entails, so that when we eventually start to do other things and leverage it for other things, they understand the way that it
Mm.
works better. Because I think that's the gap that is in the market.
Okay, that's super helpful. Thank you. And if you're just joining, I'm having a conversation with Jeremy Queno. He's the general manager at Jumo, also for Africa operations and partnership. We are just discussing his journey to Jumo as general manager and what he has seen in the fintech space. He's also shared briefly what his journey was like and what he wished he knew before entering the fintech space. Thank you, Jeremy. And just before we wrap up, this is scheduled to be a 30 minutes session. So before we wrap up, just want to get like a quick fire round for people who haven't seen or met you before to understand a bit of who you are. So if you're ready, first thing that comes to your mind, what's your favorite app on your phone?
Quora,
Quora. Jeremy, are you
yeah.
sure? Are you sure you're not impressing us? Okay, okay, that is significant. Okay, Quora. What's your go-to way of distressing?
Walking.
Walking. What are you doing that is not fintech or tech related this year?
I am taking golf lessons.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. And before we wrap up, I also wanted to find out from you, is there any advice you would give anyone who is looking to enter the fintech or startup scene here in Ghana or Africa?
Yeah, I would say that the fintech or tech scene in Africa is very promising. You should go in with your eyes wide open, though. I think that how things look from the outside do not paint a full picture of what it is when you get in. So as much as you do your research, I think it's important to understand that the fintech industry is akin to any other industry, despite the hype that you see. It just gets reported a lot. But as with any other industry, you need to make sure that you are focusing not just on your technical skills, but also on your soft skills as well. So emotional intelligence, your ability to be resilient in times of difficulty, continuously improving your skills so that any challenge that comes your way is easier to solve because you know what to do, as opposed to having the stress of being in a position where you lack the skill, you lack the experience, and you don't know what to do. That can cause a lot of trauma for a lot of people. So I would say that the upside is incredible if you are able to get it right as a founder, as a founder, or as a startup entrepreneur. And the upside is also great if you're just joining a fintech startup or a fintech scale up or a larger fintech as well, because like I said, you're making a difference in a lot of people's lives. But at the same time, as we've mentioned before, that state of controlled chaos is very prevalent. And so you have to get comfortable with continuous change, continuous switches in direction, and pivoting is one of the words that we use a lot. You have to pivot, you have to adjust, and you have to build that metal of adjusting to the times and adjusting to the situation. But if you are able to make it through all of that and be resilient, it's definitely a fulfilling path to have. So that would be my advice to anybody considering or jumping into the fintech or tech startup ecosystem or space.
All right, so you heard it from Jeremy himself. It's control chaos that can be fulfilling if you apply yourself. And finally, Jeremy, before we go, I wanted to pick your mind on what you think the trends are going to be this year in 2024. First of all, in the fintech space, in payments, right now, there has been an increased demand for cross-border payments on the continent. I still don't see how it's happening outside PAPs. I don't see it's happening yet. Do you have any idea what the trends are going to be? Any whispers happening where you are?
Sure. So I think I was actually engaging or chatting with somebody right about this topic like 2 days ago because of an article we read, right? Because most people didn't seem to have had, or most fintechs or most tech startups didn't have the best 2023, right? People have been calling it the fintech or tech graveyard because we saw a number of layoffs, a number of people hit by the macroeconomic hardships that we went through. And I think that, so a number of things are going to happen. One, the payment space has always had a lot of attention, a lot of hype, and a lot of demand. I think the problem that we face in our market is not a problem of demand, it's actually a problem of supply. But from the payment standpoint, I think the issue that is difficult to solve is the fact that we have such a fragmented market, lots of different currencies, lots of different regulations, and you have the borders to deal with. Now, in the long term, I'm hoping that we can get to the point where regulators work together to sort of streamline and benchmark us to sort of as some sort of standardization that allows easier license acquisition, easier cross-border, like you said, remittances, cross-border collaborations. But I think from the funding standpoint as well, unfortunately, because of some of the events that have happened, investors, funders are going to be more cautious about the fintech ecosystem, where there's going to be more focus on quality over quantity. So you can't just grow at all costs. You have to show that you're making a sustainable profit and you're serving the customer in a way that he has utility for. So your retention, your repeat customers are going to be a big factor. The investors are going to focus more on your value over your valuation, because we've seen instances of bloated valuations as well. So all of these things are going to sort of take precedence in 2024 as we go ahead. And I think that fortunately, we are experiencing a regulator who has set up a fintech and innovation unit who is actually paying attention and trying to do their very best to understand the ecosystem and know how best they can play. If we had multiple of these in the different territories, I think life would be easier for most people. But like everything else in the ecosystem, in the tech space, it's going to be a journey. So I think the first thing is for the businesses to streamline their operations, focus more on, like we said, the quality, the value that they provide over their valuations and just the quantity and growing at all costs. And then, trying to rope in the regulators and the actors so that they understand as much as possible, so that when it comes to a policy framework standpoint, they are informed enough to make the right kind of plays that open up the ecosystem for payments, credits, all the domains of fintech. So those are my thoughts about what the landscape is going to look like as we move forward.
Okay, there you have it. Right from fintech players own mouth, quality over quantity, and then also being able to leverage on what policymakers are giving us so we can come up with better solutions. Jeremy, thank you so much. This has been definitely insightful. Thank you. We are definitely looking forward to seeing all the many things you do in your new role, and congratulations once again. If you just tuned in, I've been having the Innovator Spotlight conversation with Jeremy Queno, who was just given the general manager role, Africa operations and partnership at Jumo. And
That's
in
a
his
mouthful.
yes, and in his fun time, he likes playing golf. So if you're a golfer, hit up Jeremy, and I'm sure he'll teach you something on the 18 hole. All right, Jeremy,
I'm a
thank you
beginner
so
as
much.
well.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having
Looking
me.
forward to
Definitely a pleasure. And
awesome.
I'll definitely stay in touch. Awesome.
Okay. All right, man. Thank you.